Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 23rd July 2024. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we will look into various highlights of the economic survey. We will try to look into various findings and observation from all the chapters of economic survey. After that, we will discuss the impact of heat stress. Then we will try to learn an interesting topic, that is carbon border adjustment mechanism. Then we'll try to look into some basic details about INS Brahmaputra. After that, we'll try to decipher various aspects of special category status, and at the end we will look into some prelims snippets which will help you in excelling your prelims exam. So stay tuned. So our first topic is highlights from economic survey. The context of this topic is that the economic survey was tabled on 22nd July in the Parliament. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, growth and development, monetary policy, planning, capital market, fiscal policy, banking sector and non-banking financial companies, and inclusive growth. So let's try to look into some basics first. So this economic survey is presented by this Ministry of Finance, and this is an annual document, and it is prepared by the Economics Division of Department of Economic Affairs, and this document is prepared on the overall guidance as well as advice of Chief Economic Advisor. Now this economic survey reviews the development of Indian economy in past 12 months, and it also tells us the broader economic outlook for the current fiscal year. This survey also presents the current status of Indian economy, and it also gives us an idea about the status of GDP growth rate, inflation, employment scenario, and other things. This economic survey was presented for the first time in the year 1950-51, and up to 1964 this survey was presented along with the Union budget. However, after 1964 it has been delinked and it has been now presented separately. This year economic survey has highlighted that economy has broadly caught up the pre-COVID trends, and economic survey has also said that there is need to stress on the various aspects like inequality in the economy, the unemployment scenario on the priority basis. What does the survey is saying? That economy has caught up to pre-COVID levels. The GDP slump that we have seen, the GDP decline, the inflation rise that we have seen, almost all has been caught up now. This has been the major highlight. Now, there are 13 chapters in this economic survey. We will try to look into some major findings and observations from this all the 13 chapters. One question that might come in your mind, that how this economic survey will benefit you people in this UPSC preparation. So first of all, majorly it can help you in enriching the quality of your answers that you will be writing in the mains exam, and this will also help in providing various recommendations, various suggestions that you can write in your mains exam. And apart from this, there might be a case that some questions can be asked in the prelims regarding major trends that has been seen in the economic survey. If we talk about the chapter 1 of the survey, which named as the state of Indian economy, and steady as she goes, means the economy have overcome the broader headwinds like the pandemics, the geopolitical issues like the Russia-Ukraine war, etc. The survey also says that the global economic growth has been better than the expected. Here, the emerging market and developing economies have seen a better growth rate as compared to the advanced economy and the overall world output. With respect to India, the survey says that India is following a robust pathway towards the economic growth. India's real GDP grew to almost 8.2% in financial year 2024, and it is exceeding the 8% mark in 3 out of 4 quarters in the financial year 24. And the gross fixed capital formation also increased to almost 9% in real terms in 23-24. In simple terms, what is this gross fixed capital formation? It is the how much country is investing in the physical assets. Then the retail inflation have also declined to almost 5.4% in financial year 2024 due to the supply chain disruptions and the non-availability of raw material, etc. After the pandemic, the inflation has been on the higher sides, but now it has declined to almost 5.4% in financial year 24. The real GDP in financial year 24 recorded to be 20% higher than its level in the financial year 20, which is the pre-pandemic level. The survey says that India's growth has remained very strong, and consumer is the one of the major factor that is leading the charge. What does it mean? Actually, the GDP is calculated on the basis of three methods. One is income method, one is value added method, and third is the expenditure method. In the income method, we add all the income that is generated by the four factors of production, that is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So here, for the land, we get rent; for the labor, wages; for the capital, we get interest; and for the entrepreneurship, we get profit. Then in the value added method of the GDP calculation, we add all the value addition that is being done at each stage by each sector. For example, agriculture sector, manufacturing sector, and the services sector. Then in the expenditure method, we first add the private consumption expenditure, that is household consumption expenditure. Then we also add here the investment that is being done by the government and the privates, that is investment expenditure. Then also the government final consumption expenditure and the net of export minus imports. So here, this share in the GDP at current prices, the investment is contributing to almost 30.8%, whereas export have contributed to almost 21.9%, and the private consumption is the one of the leading shares. If we talk about the other sector, in the agriculture sector, we had a slower pace due to the erratic weather, the climate change related issues like drought, increased cases of rainfalls, then not availability of proper irrigation facilities, etc. Then the manufacturing have rebounded strongly and it is growing almost with the pace of 9.9%. Then the services sector is continued to driving the economic growth. The service sector exports have continued to break records and it has almost seen a more than 2x growth from the level that we have in the financial year 15. Then the survey further talks about the focus on the fiscal consolidation while still maintaining the growth. The fiscal deficit have reduced to 5.6% of GDP in the financial year 2024. As you will be knowing that the fiscal deficit is the total expenditure minus total revenue excluding the borrowings. The tax revenue also exceeded the estimates due to the strong economic activities. Okay. The GST collections have seen a record high. It has been to almost 20.8 lakh crores. The capital expenditure, that is expenditure being done on the tangible assets, have increased to almost 28.2% year on year, whereas subsidies have declined by 22.1%. That shows that government is moving towards the fiscal consolidation, prudent use of financial resources. Then inflation have also moderated to 5.4% in financial year 24 from 6.7% in financial year 23. Now, government is also ensuring that inclusive growth is happening, where growth of all the people in the society, whether it is poor or whether it is the farmers, downtrodden, everyone's care is being taken care of. And in this regard, government has taken various measures. For example, the Swachh Bharat mission have built almost 11.7 crore toilets, which is focusing on the sanitation, hygiene, and decrease incidence of non-communicable diseases, etc. Then the Jal Jeevan mission, which is providing the tapped water connection. Almost 11.6 crore people have been provided the piped water connections. That is increasing the availability of potable water and reducing the disease prevalence. Then PM Ujjwala Yojana gas connection, which have been provided to almost 10.3 crore people. That is leading to more women empowerment. Then Ayushman Bharat scheme and the PM Awas Yojana have been also some of the major popular schemes of the government of India. The key social indicators have also seen some improvement. For example, unemployment rate have declined to 3.2% in 22-23. The female labor force participation have increased. The poverty level have reduced significantly. The multi-dimensional poverty index that has been released by the Niti Aayog have also seen that the head count ratio has decreased to a significant level. Then the outlook for financial year 25 projects 6.5% to 7% real GDP growth with risk evenly balanced. Global uncertainties remain around, like the inflation, geopolitics, and the trade related issues that are going on between China and the West, especially US and other countries. But India has been very successful in managing all these headwinds. Then the domestic growth drivers are mainly expected to remain strong, especially the consumption, expenditure, demand of consumption, etc. Domestic economic activities, all that has been remained very strong. Then if we move towards the chapter 2, which talks about the monetary management and the financial intermediation, it says that there has been a robust capital adequacy ratio for the banks. The capital adequacy ratio is the ratio of the bank's capital buffer divided by the risk weighted assets, or in simple terms you can also go with this formula, that's tier 1 capital plus tier 2 capital divided by the risk weighted assets. Here, how well that bank is prepared to address the risk associated with the lending that they are doing. Whatever the tier 1 capital have some of the robust securities like government securities, etc. So the survey emphasized that the banks have very robust capital adequacy ratio. Banks have been in a good position. The bank's credit have also seen a recent high. It have increased to almost 164.3 lakh crore in the financial year 24. The capital market have seen a strong performance with Nifty 50 up with almost 26.8%. The insolvency and bankruptcy code have also emerged as an effective tool for resolving the stressed assets. The capital market saw increased retail participation. Okay, in the past few quarters, the retail participation we have seen an increased trend. The security transaction tax that government is collecting on the buying and selling of the securities on the stock market have also seen an increased uptrend, and that have also led to increased direct tax collection. But the survey also says that there is need to be cautious while trading in the derivative markets, especially the trading like futures and options, etc. Various challenges that include like to manage the risk with increased financialization, means increasing lending, increasing insurance products, etc. Then there is also need to ensure the orderly financial market development, improving the customer centricity in the financial services, and leveraging the technology responsibly, means the cyber attacks, etc., that are increasing, that is leading to a lot of economic losses, that needs to be addressed well. Overall, India's financial sector outlook is positive with opportunities to support the vision of becoming a developed economy by 27, that is the vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047. Then if we move to chapter 3, that is price and inflation, India have a high growth and India have been a high growth and low inflation powerhouse. Our core inflation have plumped to record 4-year low. This has been 3.1% in the June 2024. Okay, and if we look into the headline inflation also, it has been lowest in the financial year 2024. The core inflation excludes the food and the fuel items or the volatile items, whereas headline inflation does include that. If we look into the food inflation, that has been one of the major drivers for increased inflation in Indian economy. And this food inflation has increased due to the adverse weather conditions like the increased drought-like condition, incessant rainfalls, etc. And that has affected the crops like vegetables, horticultures, etc. But the prompt government measures where their government have imposed export restrictions, stocking limits, and the subsidized retail sales have been done by the government, have tackled these problems very well. For example, government have banned the exports of wheat, then there has been stock limits on onion and various perishable products. Then government have been also going for retail sales at the subsidized rate. For example, the sale by NAFED, etc., for the onions, etc. So all these have helped in ensuring in normalizing the food inflation. Then the survey also observes that there has been interstate variation in inflation, with the rural areas showing more pronounced differences because of the lack of proper supply chains, proper robust supply chains, and perishable nature of the products. Rural areas have seen increased differences in the inflation level. Then the global commodity prices, especially for the edible oils, influence the domestic inflation to a high levels. And the outlook that RBI and IMF says that projects India's inflation to align with target of 4 to 6% in the coming years, which is the target of the Monetary Policy Committee. Then the recommendation for the long-term price stability is to increase the domestic productions of edible oils and pulses to reduce the import dependence. India is one of the highest importer of edible oil pulses, and despite with having good number of production, we are still importing. So we need to be self-sufficient here. Then we also need to invest in the developing proper storage capacities. Then we need to, what we can say, improve the storage and processing facilities. The food processing sector FPIs needs to be made more robust for especially the horticulture products and the perishable items. Then there is need to enhance the price monitoring system, and there is need to expedite the construction of producer price index. For example, the measures like ENAM, which need to be made more robust to ensure proper price monitoring system, and we need to have proper construction of producer price index, which is the average change in the selling price received by the producers. Then we need to update the consumer price index with the fresh weights based on the recent household expenditure survey data. That basket that we have for calculating the consumer price index is outdated. We need to update that based on the updated household expenditure survey data. Then if we move to chapter 4, that is external sector, India's external sector have a steady trajectory in the global front. India's service exports grow more than doubled in 9 years. India's rank in World Bank's logistic performance index improved from 44 in 2018 to 38 in 23. India is emerging as a top remittance recipient country globally, reaching a milestone of $120 billion, and increased share is also in the GVC related to the gross trade, that is global value chain. So India's contribution in the global value chain has seen an uptrend. Then the merchandise exports moderated due to the lower demand from the major partners, but service exports perform well. Merchandise trades includes the trades of apparels, etc. Then the current account deficit have improved to 0.7% of GDP in financial year 24 from 2% in financial year 23. The foreign portfolio investment saw a significant turnaround with net inflows of almost $44.1 billion in financial year 24. So that has also led to a increased activity in the capital market, robust capital market. Then the foreign exchange reserves increased by almost $68 billion to $653.7 billion, which will cover almost 10 months of our imports. Indian rupee remained stable, depreciating only almost 2.9% against the US dollar in the financial year 24. Then various challenges and outlook that we have with regard to the external sector. Geopolitical tensions and the policy uncertainties pose risk to the export performance. The geopolitical risk, like the risks that are with related to the trade, then the tensions that are going on between the other countries. Then rising protectionism and trade costs due to shipping route disruptions are concerns. What the attacks that we have seen in past few months on the various ships, etc., that has been also a major challenge. Then the commodity price volatility can impact the trade balance and inflation. Future should be on improving the competitiveness in various product areas. We need to promote the competitiveness, and also we need to increase the productivity. Then there is also need to foster the stronger regional trade ties, especially with our neighborhoods that we have, because we have less logistic cost with regard to our neighbors. So we need to improve our regional ties, and especially with regard to the South Asian countries. Then we also need to enhance the product safety and quality consciousness in the private sector. In the past few months, we have seen various products like spices of India have been rejected by various countries due to the not following the proper standards, lack of proper sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So India need to make that also very robust, and for this there is need for increasing the lab testing facilities, increasing awareness among the food processors. Then there is also need to maintain policy stability in the public sector. The fiscal policy and the monetary policy both need to be balanced, and obviously there should not be any knee-jerk reactions. In chapter 5, which talks about the medium term outlook, that is of almost 3 to 5 years, the survey says that the nominal GDP grew to almost 35 times in rupee terms, and the Indian economy has grown to almost $300 billion in 1993 to $3.6 trillion in 2024. The nominal GDP is calculated where the prices change. It is calculated at the current prices level, whereas real GDP we calculate on the basis of a base year on which the prices are fixed. Then the survey also gives us 6-pronged growth strategy. The first is boosting private sector investment. Second is growing India's MSMEs. Then also removing growth impediments in agriculture, securing financing for the green transition, and bridging the education employment gap. We need to have a skill census to understand the demand of the industry so that proper skilling can be done to the youth population, and we can properly leverage our demographic dividend. Then there is also need to build the state capacities and the capabilities across the sectors. Various initiative and policies that government have taken in the past few years is production linked incentive, national infrastructure pipeline, national monetization pipeline, then make in India, mission Karma Yogi for the civil services. All that has been mainly focused to increase the GDP growth and to ensure that a robust path of growth we can see in the upcoming times. Then in chapter 6, the survey talks about the climate change and the energy transition. Here, the survey highlights that the cumulative installed solar capacity of India is almost 82.64 gigawatt. The carbon sink is of almost 1.97 billion tons of CO2 equivalent that has been created between 2005 to 2019. Then the emission intensity of India's GDP reduced by 33% in 2019, and the share of non-fossil fuel sources have reached to only 45.4%, and additional 30 gigawatt of solar capacity under PM Surya Ghar Yojana. And the survey also says that India's per capita carbon emissions are only 1/3 of the global average, and India mainly aims to balance the economic development with environment sustainability to achieve both vision of a Viksit Bharat or developed Bharat by 2047 and also to achieve the net zero by 2070. But there are some challenges in transition from the fossil fuel based energy to the cleaner energy, because we have to ensure the energy security as well as the affordability. As we have seen, there has been some issues like the financing of the renewable energy, then various intermittency issues where the various companies have to shift from the fossil fuel based energy to the renewable energy. And the challenges also lies towards balancing the energy needs with the renewable targets, because as of now the fossil fuel based energy is little cheaper. The initial upfront cost for the renewable energy is little higher, and that is where there has been a challenge in moving towards the clean energy transitions. India have also taken lead in the development of various international cooperation, for example International Solar Alliance and Coalition for disaster resilient infrastructures. Then in chapter 7, which talks about the social sector, the overall improvement have been seen in the multidimensional poverty, which have nearly halved from 0.117 in 2015-16 to 0.066 in 2019-21. 13.5 crore Indians have escaped multidimensional poverty between 2015-16 and 2019-21. If we talk about the healthcare, government healthcare expenditure have increased from 1.4% of GDP in 2014-15 to 1.9% in 23-24. Out of pocket expenditure have declined from 64.2% to 47.1% of total health expenditure between 2013-14 and 2019-20. The Ayushman Bharat scheme, which is a flagship scheme of Government of India, have covered almost 7.37 crore hospital admissions. If we talk about the education sector, gross enrollment ratio in the higher education have increased to 4.33 crore in 21-22 from 3.42 crore in 2014-15. Also, we have seen uptrend in the female gross enrollment ratio. Then if we talk about the female enrollment in the higher education, it is increased by almost 31.6% since 2014-15. Then the national education policy is also being implemented throughout the country and it is underway. Then if you talk about the women's empowerment, the female labor force participation rate rose to 37% in 22-23 from 23.3% in 27-18. 55.6% of Jan Dhan Yojana account holders are women. 68% of loans under the PM Mudra Yojana sanctioned to the women entrepreneurship. Apart from this, the ration card that are being issued, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, they are mainly issued in the names of women, that is leading to increased women empowerment. Then if we talk about the rural development, 11.57 crore toilets constructed under the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin, 11.7 crore households provided tap water connection under the Jal Jeevan Mission, and 2.63 crore houses were constructed for the poor under the PM Awas Gramin. If we talk about the digital governance, e-Gram Swaraj platform have been introduced for the digitization of the panchayats, connecting it with proper internets and providing proper infrastructure like computers, etc. Then there has been also the Swamit scheme, which has been mapping the rural lands properly to reduce the litigations. If you talk about the chapter 8, that is employment and skill development, the key findings are unemployment rate have declined to 3.2% in 22-23, female labor force participation rate increased to 37% in 2022-23, almost 4.69 crore MSMEs have been registered on the Udyam registration portal as of July 24, 17.24 lakh guarantees worth 2.03 lakh crore approved under the CGTMSE in financial year 24. What is this? This is the Credit Guarantee Trust for the micro and small enterprises, which is mainly developed by the Ministry of MSME. Then the net payroll addition to the EPFO have been more than doubled from 61 lakh in financial year 19 to 131.5 lakh in financial year 24, which is showing that increasing formalization in the economy as well as increasing employment scenario in the economy. Then more than 1 crore persons trained under the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana since its inception in 2015. Then some other highlights are that the rising youth and female participation presents an opportunity to tap the demographic dividend as well as the gender dividend. We have proper availability, we have proper space to leverage that demographic dividend, but there is need to properly address issues with the proper policy focus. Then the agro processing and the care economy identifies as the promising sector for the quality employment generation. Skill development initiatives are showing progress, but only 4.4% of young workforce are formally skilled. The regulatory reforms needed to boost the employment, especially for the women workers and apprenticeships. Then if we talk about the chapter 9, agriculture and food management, the survey says that agriculture sector shows resilience and growth. The average annual growth rate is of 4.18% at constant prices over last 5 years. The livestock sector grew at almost 7.38% at constant price from 2014-15 to 22-23. Almost 90 lakh hectares has been covered under the micro irrigation in the country under the PDMC, that is per drop more crop, from 2015-16 to 23-24. Almost 8,195 FPOs, that is farmer producer organizations, have registered under the new farmer produce organization scheme as of 29 Feb 2024. The free food grains have been provided to almost 81.35 crore beneficiaries under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana for a further period of 5 years. Our food grain production has been also very robust. It has been more than 300 million tons in the past few years. Then survey also says that more than 3.24 lakh crore were released over 11 crore farmers under the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana. Then area under oilseed cultivation have increased from 25.60 million hectares to that was in year 2014-15 to 30.08 million hectare in 23-24. Now, some of the other observation regarding the agriculture and the food management is that allied sector like animal husbandries and fisheries are emerging as significant growth driver, but there is need for proper hand-holding regarding these sectors. Then there is also need for greater crop diversification towards pulses, oilseeds and horticultures, because that is one area where we are seeing our increased losses after the production. As per a report by the Niti Aayog, India is losing almost 90,000 crores of food grain every year. So for this, we need to promote various crops, we need to diversify various crops. Also, we need to invest in the infrastructure, especially the cold storage facilities, processing facilities. Then there is also need to put emphasis on the sustainable agricultural practices and climate resilient farming. Cooperatives are playing crucial role in aggregating produce and enhancing the bargaining power of small farmers. Then if we move to chapter 10, that talks about the industry. it says that industrial growth rate was 9.5%, and it is powering the economic growth in the financial year 24. Manufacturing and construction nearly reached double-digit growth in financial year 24. Almost 997.2 million tons of coal was produced in financial year 24, and that is leading to reduced import dependency on the foreign coals. Then steel sector have also achieved its highest level of production in financial year 24. Almost 91.76 lakh guarantees for the MSME sector were approved under the CGT MSE scheme, that is Central Guarantee Fund Trust for Micro and Small Enterprises. Then DPIIT recognized startups have increased to more than 1.25 lakh as of March 2024. There has been significant realignment in the output shares of the industrial segments over the last few decades. The consumer-oriented industries like automobiles and pharmaceuticals made large gains. That is also showing the fact that the purchasing power of people are increasing. Then there is also need for greater efficiencies in the labor-intensive segments like textiles and the food processing. Here we need to skill the labors so that the productivity and efficiency can be increased. Then there is also importance for incentivizing the research and development investment and greater formalization of smaller manufacturers. The issue that has been highlighted that the private investment in the research and development has been very low, and here there is need for increased investment by the private sector in the research and development and innovation. If we talk about chapter 11, that is services, key findings are that the service sector accounts for 55% of economy and growing at almost 7.6% in financial year 24. The IT BPM sector revenue reached to almost $25.4 billion in financial year 24. 92 lakh foreign tourist arrivals happened in 2023, a 43.5% increase year on year. The e-commerce marketplace is expected to cross $350 billion by 2030. The various other observations have been that there has been a rapid shift towards the digital services like online payment and e-commerce. If we see in the past few quarters, the UPI transactions have increased manifold. Then there is also increased demand for high-tech services as inputs in other productive activities. The demand for artificial intelligence, machine learning and blockchain technologies, etc. have seen a uptrend. India's young and tech-savvy population offers opportunity to enhance vocational and educational ecosystem. There is need to change our curriculum as per the demand of the economy. For example, various coding, etc. can be included in the curriculum because that is the need of the hour, that is the demand of the industry. Then there is also need to equip workforce with the digital and high-tech skills in a time-bound manner. Then if we talk about the chapter 12 that talks about the infrastructure, key findings are that the capital expenditure have increased 2.2 times from financial year 21 to financial year 24. Almost 945 kilometers of metro rail or rapid rail transportation systems lines were operational and 939 kilometers are under the construction. Renewable energy capacity have increased to 190.57 gigawatt as of March 24. More than 6 lakh kilometer of optical fiber have been laid under the BharatNet project, which is focusing on the improving the digital connectivity, improving the internet connections in the rural areas especially. Then other observation regarding the infrastructure in the survey is that there has been significant expansion in the physical and digital connectivity, which is improving the quality of life of people. Then there is also need for viable public-private partnership projects to supplement the government investments. There is also need for importance of regular assessment of infrastructure utilization and mid-course corrections. Means whatever the infrastructure we already have, there is need to have proper checks on that proper maintenance on that, so that incidences like where infrastructure is falling and it had costed several lives, etc. So that can be reduced properly. There is also need for emphasis on clean energy transition and sustainable urban development. Then if we talk about chapter 13, that is the last chapter related with the climate change, the key findings are that India's reduced emission intensity vis-a-vis GDP by 33% between 2005 and 2019. The emission intensity of India have reduced. The 40% of electric installed capacity through non-fossil fuel sources have been achieved. India's per capita emission remain low at 2.5 to 2.8 tons CO2 equivalent per year. Then also the developed countries provided only $83.3 billion of $100 billion climate finance that was pledged. Then various other observations that has been made by the survey is that the survey have criticized the global approach which is focusing on energy substitution over the consumption patterns. What is happening? The world is focusing on substitution and moving towards the renewable energy, but the consumption pattern, the energy consumption pattern have not seen that much change as compared to our focus on the energy substitution. Then the emphasis on India's traditional sustainable practices as lesson for the climate action. Then there is also need for climate strategies suited to India's development priorities. The mission life, that initiative is promoting the sustainable individual actions and the lifestyles, means this is focusing on the changes at the personal levels, means we are changing our lifestyles to make it in sync with the climate change agenda. This was all for the highlights of economic survey. What you can do, you can just check the handout that is available in the description box, that can help you for the future reference. Our second topic is impact of heat stress. The context of this topic is that a lead editorial has appeared focusing on the various impacts of heat stress on labor productivity. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 1, important geophysical phenomena, and syllabus of your GS paper 3, employment and climate change. So let's try to look into basics first. Actually, this heat stress is combination of metabolic heat, the heat that is produced by the body, heat that is produced during the various reactions that are happening while breaking down various nutrients, etc. Then various environmental factors, for example, rise in heat wave like conditions, etc. And the clothing material that the person is wearing. When all these three are combined, it leads to increased heat storage inside our body, and ultimately it leads to heat stress. For example, if a person is wearing a black color nylon cloth in the month of June, when the temperature is 45 degree, and he is working outside in any of the construction work, etc., that can lead to high heat storage in that person, and ultimately it can lead to increased heat stress. And it mainly occurs when the temperature is above 35 degrees Celsius, and there is also increase in the humidity levels. It poses a lot of occupational health risk for the laborers. It can impact the physical functions as well as the capabilities of the people who are working. It can also impact the working capacity, and that's where the productivity as well as efficiency also gets impacted. The World Health Organization says that the heat stress is linked to the climate change, and it is likely to cause more than 38,000 extra deaths a year worldwide between 2030 to 2050. If we talk about various effects that heat stress can lead to, first is that global impact of heat stress on workers. It can affect the labor efficiency and productivity, because the labor might get ill, he might get sick due to the effect of heat stress, or the working time get also reduced because of the increased heat wave like conditions. But the effect that it can create is that the people who are already poor, who are already perishing in the poverty, who do not have proper basic facilities like proper educational facilities, even the basic facilities like the food, clothing, etc. are not available, they will not be affected by this heat stress. Rather, I should say, they will be compelled to work in this heat stress, because they are those vulnerable sections who do not have even the basic facilities, and there might be a case that they will have to work, they will be compelled to work in some of the hazardous conditions. A report by ILO which says that the percentage of GDP loss to heat stress under a 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming scenario, 10 most affected countries in Asia and the Pacific will be these countries, and India is going to be one of that countries who is going to be impacted much due to this heat stress. Then if we talk about various health effects, it can lead to heat stroke, fatigue, health inducing fainting, respiratory disease, kidney failure, as well as various cardiovascular diseases. India is facing high vulnerability, and India has been disproportionately affected. Almost 34 million Indian workers, as some experts believe, are projected to lose jobs due to the heat wave increases as well as increase in the heat stress. A study in the West Bengal shows that a 2% decrease in the female brick makers' productivity with an increase of 1 degree Celsius temperatures. India have seen a most significant decline in the working hours. and due to this has been majorly due to the heat stress. Then India have large informal sector, and also the cheap labor availability is there, where their labor is abundant. So that also increases the vulnerability, where some of the persons who will not have basic facilities, and also they are part of that informal sector where there are no proper social security benefits, there are lack of proper wages, etc. They might be compelled to work in the hazardous conditions. Then in India, there has been lot of interstate as well as intrastate migrations, especially from the rural to urban areas in search of various employment, etc. And these migrant workers, especially who are working in the construction sector, brick making sector, etc., they lack the safety protection as well as the essential services to work there properly. So what should be done? First of all, there is need for preparation of action plan, especially the state action plans are needed and the local action plans are needed to prevent as well as manage the heat waves. Then existing measures, whatever the framework are existing, they need to be implemented, enforced properly. And for this, there is need for collaboration between the different parts of the society, whether it is central government, state government, NGOs, civil society organization, etc. India has national guidelines for the heat wave action plans focusing on the worker protection, and that needs to be implemented properly. Then ILO emphasizes the need for measures to ensure worker safety and health, and India needs to follow that. There is also need for collaboration between the government, employers, employees, etc. The employers need to understand the worker safety, and they should understand that that should be their topmost priority. There is also need to develop infrastructure and early warning system, especially with regard to the heat wave conditions, so that that can be predicted beforehand, and all the laborers who are compelled to work in that heat wave conditions, thus some substitute can be made available for them. There is also need to develop an acclimatization plan, where the new workers who are coming, they should get proper training, they should get proper time to get accustomed to get used to the new climate that they are experiencing. Then at the individual level, we can set up a buddy system where the workers are understanding the problems of each other. Then there is also need to schedule and encourage frequent rest breaks. Then there is also need to emphasize the appropriate clothing that can be provided by the employers also. We need to also encourage workers to drink proper fluids at the regular level, that can be also provided to that can be also provided by the employers also. And we should also understand that the 4 labor codes that has been brought by the government, one is on the proper safe working conditions also. So it is the need of the hour that the employers as well as government understand that heat stress is one of the important issue that need to be looked on the priority. A mains practice question from this topic that you can practice is that discuss the major impact of heat stress on health, suggest some measures to address the issues effectively. Our next topic is carbon border adjustment mechanism. The context of this topic is that the economic survey has noted that the forthcoming carbon border adjustment tax, that is CBAT, mooted by the European Union, went against the spirit of Paris Agreement. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your UPC prelims, current events of national and international importance, and syllabus of your GS paper 3, conservation, environmental pollution and degradation. So basically, these carbon border adjustment tax or the mechanism are the tariffs on the energy intensive goods imported into the European Union. So goods like cements, steel, etc. And they are expected to come into force on January 1, 2026. The main aim of this tariff or the mechanism is to put a fair price on the carbon emission generated during the production of certain goods imported into the EU. Means what the European Union want, that let's suppose here in the any country in the European Union, cement is being produced. So whatever the carbon emission is happening here, that should be also done on any country that is exporting these products to EU. So because EU is following the climate change agenda in a more robust way. They are shifting towards the renewable energy. But the EU also wants that all those countries who are exporting to the EU, they also shift to these climate change agendas towards the renewable energy. And that is why they are putting this tariff, that these countries get accustomed to or move towards the cleaner energy. And this CBAT is levied in the form of carbon tax and calculated on the basis of embedded emissions, the emissions that was embedded in that product itself. And it is part of Fit for 55 in 2030 package, which is to achieve the 55% renewable energy target by 2030 in the EU. Now let's try to understand how this mechanism works. So let's suppose this is a EU company which is compliant with climate standard norms. They can direct sell their produce in the EU market. Okay, but let's suppose there is a non-EU company. Let's suppose this is a company situated in India. Okay, that can be any company. Let's suppose that is Tata Steel. Now when the Tata Steel will be exporting their produce to the EU will look into the border itself, that steel that is being exported to the EU, are that compliant with the carbon pricing norms, the various carbon emission norms that are prevalent in the EU or not. If that is yes, they are also following those carbon emission norms, that they are compliant with the EU climate standards, that they can sell their produce in the EU market. If that is not the case, they will have to pay the carbon border tax. This can be calculated by multiplying the carbon content into the carbon prices. Now, how this carbon price is being calculated? Actually, this EU importers of goods covered under the CBAM registers with the national authorities in the EU countries, where they can also buy CBAM certificates. And these certificates are based on the weekly ETS allowance or emission trading system allowances. So this carbon price that is being actually being imposed is actually come out of various auctions that happens through the emission trading systems. EU importer declares the emission that is embedded in its imports and surrenders the corresponding number of certificates each year. The importers have to surrender such certificates. If importer can prove that the carbon price has already been paid during the production of imported goods, the corresponding amounts can be deducted from the carbon border tax that importer have to pay. What are the various implications for India with the introduction of CBAM? And it will have a larger implication on the metal exports like steel, iron ore, aluminum products, etc. These are some of the sectors which might be highly impacted. Then if we talk about the carbon intensity disparity and the potential tariff burden, so there is disparity between the carbon intensity that India have as compared to the EU. So the proportion of coal-fired power in India is close to almost 75%, whereas it is 15% in European Union and global average is 36% only. So transition directly from this 75% coal-fired power plant to the renewable energy is not actually very feasible for India. And that is why this CBAM might impact our various sectors, especially the metal sector as well as sectors like cement, fertilizer, etc. Then the another apprehensions that countries like India have, that in future this EU can increase or expand the sectors that are covered in this CBAM. Tomorrow they might cover the petroleum products also. That can impact India's trade in longer run. Then there is also absence of domestic carbon pricing in India. There is no proper market with regard to the domestic carbon pricing, and that is also one issue that India have to get into the proper carbon prices, to look into that what is the actual emission that one particular company or one particular sector is doing. Then what should be done? Obviously there is need to invest in the clean technologies, renewable technologies. We need to move towards the cleaner energies. There is also need to develop a proper carbon pricing mechanism so that we can get to the various carbon prices. The price discovery can be better. Then there is also need to improve the emissions data collection as well as reporting. Here the self regulations can be helpful, where companies by themselves are coming with that data, where they are giving data regarding various emissions that they are doing. They are directly reporting this. There is also need to engage with the European Union. We need to go for the diplomatic channel so that we can get some leverage or concessions, because this might impact our various sectors. Then we also need to diversify the export market. Okay, EU is an important export destination, but we also need to look for various other markets, especially the regional markets like ASEAN countries, etc. A mains practice question that you people can do from this topic is that explain the concept of carbon border adjustment mechanism, discuss the major concerns India has regarding its implementation by European Union. Our next topic is INS Brahmaputra. The context of this topic is that a fire on board the Navy's INS Brahmaputra on Sunday evening have severely damaged the guided missile frigate. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your UPSC prelims, current events of national and international importance, and syllabus of your GS paper 3 defense technology. So let's try to look into basics first. This INS Brahmaputra was commissioned in April 2000 and it is the first indigenously built Brahmaputra class guided missile frigate. This is equipped with medium and close range guns, surface to surface and surface to air missiles, as well as various torpedo launchers. This supports the operations for Sea King as well as the Chetak helicopters. Now, this was built by the state-run, that is the public sector, Garden Rich Shipbuilders and Engineers Limited, with a length of almost and a beam of almost 125 meter and 14.4 meter respectively. This INS Brahmaputra has a displacement of 5,300 tons and is capable of speed in excess of 27 knots. Both INS Beas and INS Betwa are also named after the rivers, and they are also other ships in this class of Brahmaputra class. Our next topic is special category status. The context of this topic is that Union Finance Ministry in a written reply to Parliament rule out special category status for Bihar. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, Federalism, Center-State Relations. So let's try to look into basics first. This special category status was classification that was given by the center itself, and the main aim is to assist development of states that face geographical as well as social economic disadvantages. Disadvantages like there is hilly terrain of the state, there is low density of population, as well as there is location along the borders. Also, the state is facing the economic backwardness and their resources are not that sound. Various states like Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, Assam, Nagaland and various other northeastern states have given earlier the special category status. Now, this has been came into picture after the recommendation of 5th Finance Commission in 1969. And this SCS status was being given by the National Development Council, that was part of the Planning Commission. The 14th Finance Commission have done away with special category status. As of now, we do not have this mechanism of special category status. Here, we'll also have to understand that the similar nomenclature we have with regard to the special status. Okay, for example, status that earlier Jammu Kashmir have under the Article 370. So, special category status is mainly looking into the financial aspects, whereas special status also looks into some providing some autonomy in the political aspects also. Various benefits that special category status states were getting. The 30% of center's gross budget were being allocated for the special category states. Then these states were also getting significant concessions in the excise and customs duties and the income tax and the corporate tax. The 90% of funds that are required in a centrally sponsored schemes for a SCS status is given by the center itself. The unspent money in any financial year does not lapse after the completion of that particular financial year. Rather, that can be carried forwarded for that state. Then there are also some benefits that are provided to that states for the debt swapping as well as various debt relief schemes. That state might get some concessions in the interest that they have to pay for the outstanding debts. Now we will look into some prelim snippets. First topic is Competition Commission of India. As you know that fair competition in market is essential to achieve the objective of parity equality in the economy. And the goal is to create sustainable fair competition in the economy that will provide a level playing field to the producer and make the markets work for the welfare of the consumers. So let's suppose as of now there are three main players in the telecom sector. One is Jio, second is Vodafone Idea, and one is the Airtel. Now let's suppose if tomorrow all the three merge into only one company, there will be, and then there are some public sector companies like BSNL, etc. So if all these private sector companies merge into one company, there might be a creation of monopoly. Now we will not have any control, we will not have any choice to switch to any other telecom. So that is where the Competition Commission of India comes into play, that they do not want any policy or change in the economy that can affect the welfare of the consumers. And in pursuance of this goal, that is welfare of the consumer, and to provide the level playing field, the Competition Commission of India has been established by the central government with effect from 14th October 2003 under the Competition Act 2002. And it have replaced the erstwhile Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Commission 1960 that was developed after this MITP Act 1969. This commission consists of a chairperson and 6 members appointed by the central government. Various functions of Competition Commission of India is that it eliminates practices that are adverse to the competition, it ensures freedom of trade in the market, promotes sustainable practices. Then it also promotes the sustainable competition, as well as it try to protect the interest of the consumer, give opinion on the competition issue to the government, and it also undertake the capacity building as well as the competition advocacy. Our next topic is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. This is one of the flagship central government sponsored scheme. Some of the major features of this is that the adequate physical and social infrastructure is provided. All weather housing units with water, kitchen, electricity and toilets are provided. Women empowerment is also one of the important feature, because these houses are mainly built on the name of the females in that family, the lead female member in that family. Then there is also better quality of life for urban poor. Then also security of tenure. That are some of the major features. Now it have some major components. One is ISSR, that is in situ slum development, which provides 1 lakh per house for eligible slum dwellers, especially to get their slum redeveloped into better infrastructure. Then the credit linked subsidy scheme is there, which offers interest subsidies on housing loans for EWS or the low income groups. Then there are affordable housing partnership, which provides almost 1.5 lakh per EWS house. Then there are BLCs, one other component, which is beneficiary led individual house construction, which offers up to 1.5 lakh per EWS house for individual construction or enhancement. Next is the Kavach system. This Kavach system is indigenously developed automatic train protection system, and this was developed by Research Design and Standard Organization under the Indian Railways in collaboration with Medha Servo Drivers Private Limited, HBL Power Limited and Kernex Microsystem. So actually this is a electronic as well as the radio frequency devices that are installed in the locomotives here, and they are also installed in the signaling system as well, that talks to each other. Means these devices talk to each other, they communicate with each other using the ultra high radio frequency to control the brakes of train and also alert drivers. So these devices communicate with each other, and if there is a possibility of collision, that they have came on the same line, that they will alert both the drivers also, and at time they will also impose brakes in the trains. Various devices or the components are like GPS, radio antenna, traffic collision avoidance system, okay, station building, etc. And if a red signal is jumped and two trains come face to face on the same line, the technology, this Kavach system automatically takes over and applies the sudden brake, the MGNREGS. So the economic survey says that the MGNREGS fund use does not indicate the poverty level of states. The graph that has been presented by the survey shows that the ratio of proportion of the MGNREGS fund released to states and the proportion of their poor population of the major state. In states such as Kerala and Tamil Nadu, we see a uptrend in the use of MGNREGS funds, but these are the states where the poverty level is very low. Since we are talking about this scheme, let's also look into some basic features. In this scheme, 100 days wage employment assurance is provided. If the work is not provided, there will be unemployment allowance for the people. There is also fixed timeline for payment of wages compensation and also for the delayed payments. There is also mechanism of transparency and accountability, because there is proper attendance, and now biometric attendance are happening in various states. Also, the wages that they are getting are directly credited to their bank and post office accounts. This was all from my side. Thank you for joining this session. All the very best.